It gives me great pleasure to welcome on BQ Prime Sunil Kant Munjal, Chairman of Hero Enterprises. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on BQ Prime. I would say, sir, that this is a budget that has certainly navigated the commitment to growth, the commitment to fiscal prudence, and the commitment in some measure, small measure, to the middle class hopes and expectations from this budget. But that's just me talking. Mr. Munjal, what is your assessment of this budget?
So I would quite agree with you, Manvi. I would also say she's gone a little bit beyond in social equity, also in India's big commitments globally to a greener world. Sustainability in many different parts has got covered in how the skilling centers would get set up, how the additional 5G apps would get set up. And they're not directly, but collectively, they actually contribute to what India can do. She's spoken of green energy, of green farming, of green manufacturing, lowering duties on imports for hydrogen, clean hydrogen equipment, lithium-ion batteries, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say all in all, it's a good balancing act between growth on one end and ensuring fiscal discipline, and that the glide path to the final announced numbers of 25-26 of fiscal deficit are actually maintained.
Indeed, the commitment or the reiteration of that commitment came through in Nirmala Sitharaman's speech today. I'm going to actually revisit
not so much yesterday in the economic survey. I think for some reason he was a little bit hesitant to make that commitment, but she was very clear today. Yes,
she was very clear. Actually, you're right, because it wasn't clearly articulated in the economic survey, it increased ambivalence about how it would show up in the budget speech, but it showed up squarely, clearly, cleanly. I'm going to reflect a little bit on the expectations that industry had, CII in particular, on the production-linked incentive schemes, the expansion of the scope, potentially a new employment-linked incentive scheme, a little subdued reaction post the budget on those counts?
Yeah, I think she's done stuff differently. I wouldn't say it's not addressed, but certainly it's not addressed directly and squarely. So when you increase the spend on infrastructure by the quantum that she has done, she's increased from 7.5 lakh to 10 lakh crores, which is, of course, the largest spend India would ever have seen on infrastructure. You are, in effect, creating new business, new projects, therefore new employment. Also, what she's done for early stage companies, startups, starting from the artisans and giving them support, the one district, one product initiative, the skilling centers, and the micro enterprise support and benefit. So in effect, she's actually achieved that, I have to say, quite cleverly, not quite going the way that industry had asked for, because we were asking her to be more direct in supporting these initiatives. Also things like upping the spend on housing by 66%. 79,000 crores. Some of these are pretty significant numbers, actually. And as you know, housing is an industry which has a knock-on effect. There are 154 industries directly connected to house building.
Absolutely. Point taken. How does it all sort of tie into, again, a point that CII had made, that there should be a rural plus. There are farm incomes, there are off-farm incomes, there is a realization of produce in the agri sector, and there is a need to stimulate all of it with a view on improving rural lives. Some of the threads you've already touched upon, but did you see all of it coming together quite clearly in the budget speech?
So I couldn't quite clearly hear everything you said, but I'll try and guess what you were asking. Basically, you're asking, is the rural initiative comprehensive enough? And is it what we were looking for? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, like the earlier one, it's not exactly what we had asked for, but I think it will do a reasonably good job because of, on the one hand, addressing things like self-help groups. I think it's a very good idea. Focusing on women, very critical for our social structure. Supporting the lower income initiative by upping the taxes, even at the very lower end of income. And also things like allowing, now I'm going to a slightly more tech end, because she's used technology also for the agri. She's spoken about those tech centers for agriculture as well, including a large fund to be set up specifically for that. So and the millets, of course, is I think a good idea. That, of course, is an idea is not new. The Prime Minister has spoken about that earlier. It has multiple benefits, as you know. Consumes much less resources like water, has much higher nutrition, is lower cost to grow, and easier to distribute, because you can grow it in pretty harsh conditions as well. So in multiple ways, the issue has got addressed. The vocabulary used is different.
Indeed. In fact, what I was thinking while I was to her speech, that in some sense, it's quite unconventional in the approach that she's taken to articulate the initiatives and objectives of this government. One final question. I know you have a hectic schedule. Anything in terms of the miss that has left you sore?
So one of the misses I would have liked, what I would have liked to see is the initiative on capital gains tax that industry of startups has been asking for, and also for ESOPs. These two have got missed, unless I miss them or they'll come in the fine print. But I think these were two important ones, because please remember, at this moment, India's ecosystem and India's startups are the big engine for growing innovation, ideation, new industry, and most importantly, new jobs. So we have to do things to encourage and grow that, give them much more headroom. She did, however, do a couple of things for them, allowed the loss accumulation to be continued for 10 years instead of 7, and extended the incorporation time by a year, which is of course most welcome. But all in all, I would say it's a shorter speech than the one she's given earlier, but
Indeed.
She's got a lot more done in much simpler language in this much time.
Well, on that note, Mr. Munjal, thank you much for your time here on BQ Prime. Pleasure to talk to you. And I think over the next few days, we'll get a chance to read the fine print and see if there are any more positive surprises or perhaps negative ones as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.